The morning sun shined through the windows of Thompson Industries as Ethan Thompson walked into his office. At 42, he had everything a man could want: good looks, money, and success. His salt and pepper hair and expensive suit made him look like he belonged on a magazine cover. But something was missing in his life, even if he wouldn't admit it. "Mr. Thompson, the board meeting starts in 10 minutes, his secretary reminded him through the intercom. Ethan grabbed his coffee and headed to the conference room. The walls were covered with pictures of his family, 3 generations of Thompsons who had built this company from nothing. His father's portrait seemed to watch his every move, reminding him of the pressure he faced every day. The meeting room was already full when he arrived. His brother Alexander sat at the far end, wearing a fake smile that didn't reach his eyes. Next to him was Victoria Pierce, Ethan's fiancée of 2 years. She was beautiful in an ice queen sort of way, with perfectly styled blonde hair and designer clothes that probably cost more than what most people made in a month. "Let's get started," Ethan said, taking his seat at the head of the table. "We need to discuss the merger with Davis Technologies." As the meeting went on, Ethan couldn't help but notice how Victoria kept checking her phone under the table. She had been doing that a lot lately. Their wedding was 3 months away, but sometimes it felt like she was more interested in planning the social event of the season than actually getting married. The cleaning lady came in quietly to empty the trash bins. Maria Ramirez was in her mid-30s with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She had worked at Thompson Industries for 5 years, but most people didn't even notice her. Ethan did, though. He had seen her helping an elderly security guard with his lunch when he was sick and bringing coffee to the night shift workers, even though it wasn't her job. "Watch where you're going," Victoria snapped when Maria accidentally brushed against her chair. "This is a Chanel suit." "I'm so sorry, Miss Pierce," Maria apologized, her cheeks turning red. "It's fine, Maria," Ethan said firmly, giving Victoria a disapproving look. "Please continue." After the meeting, Ethan stayed behind to review some papers. His brother Alexander lingered, pretending to check his phone. "You know, brother," Alexander said casually, "some people are wondering if you're really ready to take Dad's place as CEO. The board needs someone stable." Ethan looked up sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Well, you've been distracted lately. And this merger with Davis Technologies, it's risky. Maybe you should let me handle it." "I can handle my own business, Alexander. I've been doing it successfully for 20 years. Later that evening, Ethan sat in his office, looking out at the city lights. His phone buzzed with a message from Victoria. "Darling, can't make dinner tonight. Meeting with the wedding planner. Kiss, kiss." He wasn't even disappointed anymore. That's what worried him the most. A knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Maria, pushing her cleaning cart. "Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. I didn't know you were still here. I can come back later." "No, please, go ahead," he said, watching as she efficiently went about her work. "You've been here a long time, haven't you, Maria?" She nodded, surprised that he knew. 5 years next month." "And you're raising your daughter alone?" "Yes, sir. Lisa is 12 now. She wants to be a doctor." Maria's face lit up when she talked about her daughter, and for a moment, Ethan felt envious of her simple joy. "That's wonderful," he said sincerely. "You must be very proud." "I am. Every day I thank God for our blessings, even the small ones." She paused, then added hesitantly, "If you don't mind me saying, Mr. Thompson, you look tired. Maybe you should go home and rest." Ethan smiled sadly. "Home? The penthouse isn't much of a home. It's just a place where Victoria stores her shoes." He didn't know why he said that to Maria, but something about her made him feel like he could be honest. She didn't judge, didn't want anything from him. She just listened. "Sometimes the thing we think we want isn't what we need," Maria said softly, then quickly added, "I'm sorry, that's not my place." "No, you're right." Ethan stood up, grabbing his jacket. "Thank you, Maria." As he drove home in his Mercedes, Ethan thought about his life. He had everything his father had wanted for him: success, power, a suitable fiancée. But why did it all feel so empty? He was so lost in thought that he didn't see the truck running the red light until it was too late. The last thing he heard was the screech of brakes and the sound of metal crushing metal. Then everything went black. When he opened his eyes again, the world was different. The ceiling was white, and there was a steady beeping sound nearby. Hospital. He was in a hospital. But when he tried to move, nothing happened. His body wouldn't respond. He could hear voices around him, but they seemed far away. Victoria's perfectly, modulated tones. "But darling, you have to wake up. The wedding is in 2 weeks." Alexander's fake concern. "The doctors say he might be like this for months. The board can't wait that long. I'll have to take temporary control." But there was another voice too, one that came later, when everything was quiet. A gentle voice reading stories, talking about simple things like sunshine and hope. "Good morning, Mr. Thompson. The flowers in the garden are blooming today. I brought you a book. It's one of my favorites. I hope you don't mind if I read it to you." Maria, she came every day, he realized. While others visited for show, taking pictures for social media and making grand declarations, she simply came and talked to him, read to him, treated him like a person, not a problem to be solved. Days passed, then weeks. Ethan floated in darkness, but Maria's voice became his anchor. She told him about her daughter's school play, about the old security guard's retirement party, about the changing seasons outside his window. She made him feel connected to the world when everything else seemed lost. And somewhere in that darkness, something began to change, not just in his body, which slowly started to heal, but in his heart. The things that had seemed so important before, the merger, the social status, Victoria's perfect image, none of it mattered anymore. What mattered was the genuine kindness in Maria's voice, the way she treated everyone with respect regardless of their position, the love she had for her daughter. She was real in a way his world had never been. One day he felt her hand holding his as she read from The Little Prince. He wanted to squeeze back, to let her know he was there, that he heard her. For the first time since the accident, he felt his finger move slightly. Maria gasped. Doctor, he moved his hand." The darkness was finally starting to lift, but Ethan knew that when he opened his eyes, nothing would ever be the same again. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what he needed. The doctors rushed into Ethan's hospital room when Maria called them. His fingers had moved. It was small, but it was something. Dr. Roberts checked his vital signs while nurses took notes. "This is encouraging," the doctor said. "Keep talking to him, keep reading to him. He might be starting to wake up." Maria nodded, her heart racing with hope. She had been coming to read to Mr. Thompson for 2 months now, long after her shift ended. Her daughter Lisa thought she was crazy, spending her free time with someone who couldn't even hear her. "But he can hear me, Lisa," she had told her daughter. "I know he can." Victoria burst into the room an hour later, her heels clicking on the floor. She was wearing a red designer dress and full makeup, with a photographer from Social Life magazine trailing behind her. "I came as soon as I heard," she announced loudly, positioning herself next to Ethan's bed. "Darling, I just knew you would. Come back to me. We have so much to plan, the wedding, the honeymoon." Maria quietly gathered her cleaning supplies, trying to make herself invisible. But she couldn't help noticing how Victoria kept glancing at the photographer, making sure he got her best angle. The next few days brought a parade of visitors. Alexander Thompson arrived with a team of lawyers, all carrying stacks of papers. "We need to discuss the company," he told the doctor. "Now that he's showing signs of improvement, we need to think about the future." "Mr. Thompson is still in a coma," Dr. Roberts reminded him firmly. "Any improvement is minimal at this point." "But he can sign papers, right?" Alexander pressed. "We can. Guide his hand." Maria, mopping the floor outside the room, felt sick to her stomach. She had overheard enough conversations over the past months to know that Alexander had been making big changes at Thompson Industries. None of them seemed good. For Ethan, that night after everyone had gone, Maria sat in her usual chair next to Ethan's bed. She opened the book she'd brought, The Great Gatsby, but didn't start reading right away. "I don't know if I should tell you this, Mr. Thompson," she said softly, "but I'm worried. Your brother, he's been meeting with someone named Michael Davis. I've seen them in the parking lot late at night. They're planning something, and I don't think it's good." She took a deep breath. And Miss Pierce. She's been taking pictures with every magazine, in town talking about your wedding. But yesterday I saw her having dinner with a man at the cafeteria. They were holding hands. I'm sorry, but I thought you should know. Maria felt Ethan's hand twitch again, stronger this time. His eyelids fluttered. Mr. Thompson, she whispered, her heart pounding. Can you hear me? His eyes opened slowly, blinking, against the harsh hospital lights. They were brown, she noticed, warm and confused and very much alive. Water, he croaked, his voice rusty from disuse. Maria's hands shook as she helped him sip water through a straw. I'll get the doctor, she said, turning to leave. Wait. His hand caught hers weakly. You've been here, reading to me. She nodded, tears filling her eyes. Yes. Thank you, he whispered, and there was something in his eyes that made her breath catch. The room suddenly filled with medical staff, and Maria slipped out quietly. She leaned against the wall outside, her heart racing. He was awake, he was okay, and he remembered her voice. The news of Ethan Thompson's recovery spread like wildfire. Victoria arrived within the hour, perfectly styled as always, with another photographer in tow. Darling, she cried, rushing to his bed. I've been so worried I've hardly slept, hardly eaten. Ethan looked at her with strange, distant eyes. Have you? He asked quietly. I heard you've been quite busy, actually, planning our wedding without me, having dinner with friends. Victoria's perfect smile faltered. What? Who's been telling? You lies? No one had to tell me, Ethan said. I could hear everything, every visit, every conversation, every plan you and Alexander made behind my back. Victoria's face went pale. Ethan, you're confused. The doctor said you might be disoriented. I'm not confused, he said firmly. For the first time in years, I see things very clearly. Please leave, Victoria, and take your photographer with you. After she stormed out, Ethan lay back against his pillows, exhausted. The doctor had warned him not to get too excited, but there was so much to deal with. His company, his brother's betrayal, his entire life. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. Maria stood there, looking uncertain. I'm sorry, Mr. Thompson. I just wanted to make sure you were okay before I left for the night. Maria, he said, and somehow just saying her name made him feel calmer. Would you stay for a while? Maybe read something. She smiled, that gentle smile he had grown to know so well during his days in darkness. Of course. As she read from The Great Gatsby, Ethan watched her face in the soft evening light. She was beautiful, he realized, not in Victoria's flashy, artificial way, but in a real warm way that made his heart feel full. Maria, he interrupted softly, what's going to happen to my company? She bit her lip. Your brother. He's been making deals with Michael Davis. I've seen them meeting in secret, and there are rumors that they're planning to force a merger, but not the kind you wanted. Ethan nodded slowly. They thought I would never wake up. They thought they could take everything while I was sleeping. He reached for her hand. But they didn't count on you, did they? You kept me connected to the world. You told me the truth even when you thought I couldn't hear. Maria blushed. I just did what anyone would do. No, he said firmly. You did what only someone with a truly good heart would do, and I'll never forget that. Outside the hospital room, life went on. Victoria gave interviews about her broken heart and her tragic almost wedding. Alexander scrambled to cover his tracks at the company. But inside that quiet room, something new was beginning. Something real, something true, something neither Ethan nor Maria had expected to find in the darkness of a hospital room at night. The next morning, Ethan woke up to find his hospital room filled with flowers and gift baskets. News of his recovery had spread, and everyone wanted to get back in his good graces. He pushed the flowers aside, looking for the simple daisies Maria had brought yesterday. They were the only ones that didn't feel fake. Dr. Roberts came in for his morning checkup. Your vitals are looking good, Mr. Thompson, but you'll need physical therapy to regain your strength. 2 months in a coma takes a toll on the body. How long until I can go back to work? Ethan asked. Let's take it one step at a time. Right. Now focus on getting stronger. But Ethan couldn't stop thinking about his company. While he was doing his physical therapy exercises later that morning, he asked the nurse to bring him a laptop. He needed to see exactly what Alexander had done. While he was unconscious, what he found made his blood run cold. Alexander had quietly moved money around, sold off important parts of the company, and was preparing to merge what was left with Davis Technologies, their biggest competitor. The merger would make Alexander and Michael Davis rich, but it would destroy everything their father had built. I can't believe he would do this, Ethan muttered, scrolling through document after document. Do what? Maria asked, coming in with fresh towels. Ethan looked up, relieved to see her familiar face. My brother. He's trying to sell our family's company to Michael Davis. Everything my father worked for, gone. Maria set down the towels and came closer. I've seen Mr. Davis coming to the office late at night. They always met in the parking garage like they didn't want anyone to see them. Smart girl, a voice said from the doorway. They both turned to see Alexander standing there, looking angry. Too smart for your own good, maybe. Get out, Ethan said firmly. Now, brother, is that any way to treat family? Alexander walked in, his expensive shoes clicking on the floor. I've just been taking care of business while you were indisposed. You mean while you were hoping I'd die? Ethan's voice was cold. I heard everything, Alexander. Every meeting. Every phone call. I know what you and Victoria planned. Alexander's smile faltered for a moment. You were in a coma. You couldn't have heard anything. I heard everything, Ethan repeated. Including your little meetings with Michael Davis in the parking garage. How long have you been planning to steal my company? Steal? Alexander laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've been saving it. While you were playing CEO, making risky decisions, I was protecting our father's legacy. And now that you're awake, you want to come back and ruin everything? Mr. Thompson needs his rest, Maria said firmly, stepping between the brothers. You need to leave. Alexander looked at her with contempt. The cleaning lady? Really, Ethan? First you let her play nurse, and now you're letting her fight your battles. Maria has shown more loyalty in 2 months than you have in a lifetime, Ethan said. Now get out before I call security. After Alexander left, Maria started to leave too, but Ethan caught her hand. Stay, please. I need your help. She looked surprised. What can I do? You know the company, the people. You see things others don't notice. I need to know everything that's been happening while I was asleep. So Maria told him everything she had seen and heard. The secret meetings, the whispered phone calls, the documents being shredded late at night. She had noticed it all, even though no one had noticed her. Victoria was part of it too, she said softly. She would come to the office late at night meeting with your brother and Mr. Davis. They thought no one was watching, but I was there cleaning the conference room. Ethan nodded slowly. I trusted them both. My brother, my fiancé. They were just waiting for me to die. I'm so sorry, Maria said, and the genuine compassion in her voice made his throat tight. Don't be, he said. If none of this had happened, I would have married Victoria, trusted Alexander, and lived a lie. Sometimes bad things happen to wake us up, in more ways than one. Just then, Lisa, Maria's daughter, poked her head in the door. Mum, are you coming home for dinner? Lisa. Maria looked flustered. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Stay so long. No, please, both of you stay, Ethan said quickly. I'll order something for all of us. Lisa's eyes went wide. Really? Can we have pizza? For the first time since waking up, Ethan laughed. Pizza it is. That evening, sitting in his hospital room eating pizza with Maria and Lisa, Ethan felt more at home than he ever had in his expensive penthouse. Lisa told him about her science project and her dream of becoming a doctor. Maria tried to wipe sauce off her daughter's face, looking embarrassed, but Ethan just smiled. You have a wonderful daughter, he told Maria later, after Lisa had fallen asleep on the little couch by the window. She's my whole world, Maria said softly. Everything I do for her. You've given her good values, kindness, honesty, compassion. Those are worth more than all the money in the world. I wish someone had taught me that when I was young. Maria looked at him thoughtfully. It's never too late to learn. No, he agreed, watching her in the soft evening light. It's not too late at all. The next morning, Ethan asked his lawyer to visit. It was time to fight back. He might be stuck in a hospital bed, but he wasn't going to let Alexander and Davis destroy everything he cared about. I want every document, every email, every phone record, he told the lawyer. And I want to call an emergency board meeting. Right here in my hospital room. Are you sure you're strong enough? The lawyer asked. Ethan looked over at Maria, who was quietly arranging fresh flowers by his window. She caught his eye and smiled encouragingly. I've never been stronger, he said. It's time to show my brother that being awake doesn't just mean opening your eyes. It means seeing the truth and doing something about it. The lawyer nodded and left to make arrangements. Ethan watched Maria work, thinking about how much his life had changed. 2 months ago, he had been engaged to Victoria, trusting his brother, living a life that looked perfect on the outside but felt empty inside. Now here he was, starting over, fighting for his company, yes, but also fighting for something more important, the chance to live a real life with real feelings and real people who cared about more than just money and power. Maria, he called softly. She turned, the morning sun catching her hair. Yes? Thank you. For everything. She smiled, that warm, genuine smile that had become his favorite sight in the world. You don't have to thank me. I just did what was right. That's exactly why I'm thanking you, he said. In my world, doing what's right isn't very common. But I'm learning. Thanks to you. The hospital room looked more like an office now. Papers were spread across Ethan's bed, and his laptop hummed quietly beside him. His lawyer, Jim Peterson, sat in a chair reviewing documents while Maria brought in another cup of coffee. These records are damning, Jim said, holding up a stack of papers. Alexander didn't even try to hide what he was doing. He thought you'd never wake up to catch him. Ethan took the coffee from Maria with a grateful smile. What about the board meeting? Set for tomorrow morning, right here. The board members agreed to come to you, given the circumstances. Maria started to leave, but Ethan caught her hand. Stay, please. You're part of this too. But I'm just the cleaning lady, she protested softly. You're the person who saved my company, Ethan corrected her, and my life. Just then, Victoria burst into the room, wearing a white designer dress that probably cost more than Maria made in a year. Ethan, darling, we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, Ethan said coldly. Don't be like that. Victoria perched on the edge of his bed, careful not to wrinkle her dress. I know you're upset about the merger, but Alexander was just trying to protect the company, and I only went along with it because I was worried about you. Maria quietly moved toward the door, but Victoria's eyes locked onto her. Oh, I see, the cleaning lady is still here. Isn't that sweet? But darling, don't you think it's time to stop playing charity? Case, we have a wedding to plan. The only thing I'm planning, Ethan said firmly, is how to take back my company and expose what you and my brother did. Victoria's perfect smile faltered. You wouldn't dare. Think of the scandal. I'm thinking of my father's legacy, the one you and Alexander tried to steal. Victoria stood up, her face hard. Fine, be that way, but remember, I know all your secrets, Ethan. Every dirty deal, every questionable decision. If you fight this merger, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly who you really are. After she stormed out, Maria came back to Ethan's side. Are you okay? He nodded, but his face was pale. I just never thought. The people I trusted most. Sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who can hurt us the most, Maria said softly. How did you get so wise? He asked, managing a small smile. Life teaches you things if you're willing to learn. She straightened his blankets with gentle hands. My husband left when Lisa was 2. He said he wasn't ready for responsibility. It hurt, but it taught me to be strong. Ethan caught her hand again, holding it tight. You're the strongest person I know. The next morning, the hospital room was full of board members in expensive suits. They sat in chairs around Ethan's bed, looking uncomfortable and confused. Alexander stood by the window, trying to look confident. Thank you all for coming, Ethan began. I know this is unusual, but so is having your brother try to steal your company while you're in a coma. Alexander stepped forward. Now, Ethan, you're still recovering. You're confused. I'm not confused at all. Ethan nodded to Jim, who started passing out folders. In these folders, you'll find proof that my brother has been secretly meeting with Michael Davis. They plan to merge our company with Davis Technologies, a merger that would make them rich while destroying everything our father built. The board members started flipping through the documents, murmuring among themselves. "This is ridiculous," Alexander sputtered. "You can't prove any of this." "Actually, I can." Ethan looked toward the door. "Come in, please." The night security guard walked in, followed by 3 other employees. They had all seen Alexander's late-night meetings, all kept records and took pictures, thinking something wasn't right. "And there's more," Ethan continued. "Maria?" Maria stepped forward, her hands shaking slightly but her voice steady. "I saw Mr. Alexander and Mr. Davis meeting in the parking garage many times. They talked about waiting for Mr. Ethan to die, about how they would split up the company once he was gone. I heard everything while I was cleaning." Alexander's face turned red. "You're going to believe a cleaning lady over me? Your own brother?" "Yes," Ethan said simply. "Because she's the only one who stood by me when everyone else was waiting for me to die." The board meeting lasted for hours. In the end, they voted unanimously to remove Alexander from his position and cancel any deals with Davis Technologies. Alexander stormed out threatening lawsuits, but everyone knew he was finished. Later that evening, when the room was finally quiet, Maria brought Ethan some soup from the hospital cafeteria. "You should rest now," she said. "It's been a long day." "Stay with me?" he asked. "Just for a little while?" She sat down beside his bed and he took her hand. "I couldn't have done any of this without you," he said softly. "You're stronger than you think," she replied. "You just needed someone to believe in you." "That's what I mean." He squeezed her hand. "You believed in me when no one else did. You saw me, the real me, when everyone else just saw dollar signs." Maria blushed. I saw someone who needed a friend. You saw someone who needed to wake up, in more ways than one." He touched her cheek gently. "And now that I'm awake, I'm seeing everything differently, including you." She looked down, her heart racing. "Mr. Thompson." "Ethan," he corrected. "Please, call me Ethan." "Ethan," she said softly, and somehow just saying his name made everything feel different. "What happens now?" he smiled. Now I get better. I learn to walk again, to be strong again. And maybe I learn how to live a real life with real feelings, instead of just playing a part in some society. Drama. And the company. The company will be fine, but I'm starting to think there are more important things than business deals and board meetings." He looked at her meaningfully. "Things like kindness and loyalty and love." Maria's breath caught at that last word, but before she could respond, Lisa came bouncing into the room with her school books. "Mom, can I do my homework here? Mr. Thompson promised to help me with my math." Ethan grinned. "I did promise, and a promise is something you should never break, right, Maria?" She smiled back, her eyes soft. "Right. A promise is sacred." As they helped Lisa with her homework, Ethan kept stealing glances at Maria. She had saved him in every way a person could be saved. And somehow, without meaning to, she had stolen his heart in the process. The world outside was still full of Alexander's threats and Victoria's schemes, but in that quiet hospital room, none of that seemed to matter. What mattered was the way. Maria smiled, the sound of Lisa's laughter, and the feeling that maybe, just maybe, losing everything had helped him find what he really needed all along. The physical therapy room at St. Luke's Hospital was bright and sunny. Ethan gripped the parallel bars, sweat running down his face as he tried to take another step. 2 months in a coma had left his legs weak, but he was determined to walk again. "That's it, Mr. Thompson," the physical therapist encouraged. "Just a few more steps." Maria watched from the doorway, her heart aching at how hard he was trying. She had just finished her cleaning shift, but she couldn't leave without checking on him. "You can do it, Ethan," she said softly. He looked up at the sound of her voice, and his face lit up. With renewed determination, he made it to the end of the bars. "Well done." The therapist helped him into his wheelchair. "You're making excellent progress." After the therapist left, Maria wheeled Ethan back to his room. "You're getting stronger every day," she said. "Thanks to you." He caught her hand. You give me a reason to try harder." Before she could respond, a commotion in the hallway caught their attention. Victoria was there, talking to a TV reporter. "It's just terrible," Victoria was saying, dabbing at her eyes with a designer handkerchief. "My poor Ethan, manipulated by that cleaning woman while he was vulnerable. She's trying to turn him against his own family." Maria's face went pale. Ethan squeezed her hand tight. "Don't listen to her," he said firmly. "She's just angry because her plans failed." But Victoria wasn't finished. She swept into Ethan's room, the TV camera following her. "Darling, you had to see reason. This woman is using you. She probably planned this whole thing, waiting for her chance to sink her claws into a wealthy man. Get out." Ethan's voice was like ice. "Get out before I call security." "The board needs to see this," Victoria continued, ignoring him. "They need to know you're not thinking clearly. How can you run a company when you're being manipulated by the cleaning staff?" "The only person who tried to manipulate me was you," Ethan shot back. "You and Alexander were ready to steal everything while I was unconscious. Maria was the only one who stayed loyal, who cared about me as a person and not a bank account." Victoria laughed coldly. "Oh, please. You think she cares about you? She's just a gold digger with a sob story about being a single mother. It's the oldest trick in the book." Maria stepped forward, her voice shaking but strong. "I never asked Mr. Thompson for anything. I just did what any decent person would do. I treated him with kindness and respect. Maybe if you knew what those words meant, you wouldn't be so bitter." The reporter's eyes lit up at this confrontation, but before Victoria could respond, Lisa came running into the room. Mom, they're saying awful things about you on TV." She stopped short when she saw Victoria and the camera. "Leave my mom alone, she's a good person." Victoria's perfect smile turned cruel. "Oh, how sweet, using your daughter to play on his sympathies. Did you rehearse this little scene?" "That's enough," Ethan's voice boomed through the room. "Jim, call security and get my lawyer on the phone. If Victoria or any other reporter comes near Maria or Lisa again, I'll sue them for harassment." After security escorted Victoria and the TV crew out, Maria sank into a chair, shaking. Lisa hugged her tight. "I'm so sorry," Ethan said softly. "I never meant for you to get dragged into this mess." "It's not your fault," Maria replied. "But maybe I should stop coming here. So much. People are talking." "Oh, no." Ethan reached for her hand. "I don't care what people say. You and Lisa are the best things that have happened to me. Victoria can spread all the lies she wants. It won't change the truth." "And what is the truth?" Maria asked quietly. Ethan looked at her, his eyes soft but determined. "The truth is that I'm falling in love with you, and it has nothing to do with who takes care of who or what anyone else thinks. It's about who you are, kind, honest, strong. You make me want to be a better person." Lisa's eyes went wide. "Really? You love my mom?" Ethan smiled at her. "Really, is that okay with you?" Lisa thought for a moment. "Well, you're nice. And you help me with my homework. And you make Mom smile a lot." She grinned. "Yeah, it's okay with me." Maria felt tears in her eyes. "Ethan, are you sure? Your life would be so much simpler without us." "Simpler isn't better," he said firmly. "I had simple before. A perfectly planned life with a perfectly planned wife. But it was all fake. What I feel for you, that's real, and I'm not letting anyone take that away from us." Just then, Dr. Roberts came in with Ethan's latest test results. "Good news, Mr. Thompson. At this rate, you should be able to go home. In about a week." Home. The word hung in the air. Ethan's penthouse suddenly seemed cold and empty in his mind. "Actually," he said slowly, "I've been thinking about that. Jim, can you call the real estate agent? I want to look at houses. Real homes with yards where Lisa can play and maybe a garden." Maria started to protest, but Ethan held up his hand. "I'm not asking you to move in. Not yet. But I want a fresh start, in a real home. And maybe someday when you're ready, it could be our home." Lisa bounced with excitement. "Can we get a dog? I always wanted a dog." Ethan laughed. "We'll see, one step at a time, right?" Maria looked at him, her heart full of love and fear and hope all mixed together. "One step at a time," she agreed softly. Later that night, after Lisa had fallen asleep on the couch again, Maria and Ethan sat together watching the city lights through the window. "Are you sure about all this?" she asked. "Your world is so different from mine." "My world was empty," he said simply. "Full of people like Victoria and Alexander, who only care about money and power. You showed me what really matters. Love, family, kindness. I don't want to go back to that empty life." He took her hand, kissing it gently. "I know it won't be easy. People will talk, they'll judge, but I don't care. For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I want. And it's not business deals or society parties, it's this: real love, real family, real life." Maria leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat together in comfortable silence. Outside, the city buzzed with gossip about the billionaire and the cleaning lady. Victoria was probably planning her next media attack, and Alexander was surely plotting his revenge. But in that quiet hospital room, none of that mattered. What mattered was the feeling of Maria's hand in Ethan's, the sound of Lisa's peaceful breathing, and the knowledge that sometimes life's biggest blessings come disguised as its biggest challenges. The morning newspaper lay on Ethan's hospital bed, its headlines screaming, "Billionaire scandal, cleaning lady seduces coma patient." Victoria's plan was working. The media was having a field day with the story. "Don't read that trash," Maria said, trying to take the paper away, but Ethan held on to it. "We need to know what we're up against," he said grimly. "Alexander and Victoria are trying to make me look mentally unstable. They want the board to think I'm not fit to run the company." Just then, Jim Peterson rushed in, looking worried. "Ethan, we have a problem. Alexander just called an emergency board meeting. He's presenting a medical expert who claims your coma might have affected your judgment." Maria's face went pale. "Can they do that?" "They can try," Ethan said, his jaw set. "What time is the meeting?" 2 hours, at the company headquarters." Ethan looked at his legs. He could walk short distances now, but he still needed the wheelchair for anything longer. "Then we better get ready. Maria, would you help me with my suit?" She hesitated. "Are you sure you want me there? Maybe it would be better if I stayed away for a while, just until things calm down." "No," he caught her hand. "We're facing this together. I'm done hiding, done pretending. Let them see exactly who I am and who I love." While Maria helped him into his suit, Lisa came running in from school. "Mom, some kids at school were saying mean things about you on their phones." Maria hugged her daughter tight. "People sometimes say mean things when they don't understand. Just remember what I taught you. Hold your head high and know the truth in your heart." "And the truth," Ethan added, "is that your mom is the most amazing woman I've ever met. Don't let anyone tell you different." They arrived at Thompson Industries just as the board members were gathering. Heads turned and whispers started as Ethan wheeled into the conference room with Maria by his side. Alexander stood at the head of the table next to a distinguished-looking doctor. Victoria sat nearby wearing a black suit that made her look like she was at a funeral. "Ah, brother," Alexander said smoothly. "I'm glad you could join us. Dr. Richards here is a specialist in post-coma recovery. He has some concerns about your mental state." "I'm sure he does," Ethan replied dryly, "especially since you're paying him." Dr. Richards cleared his throat. "Mr. Thompson, it's quite common for coma patients to form inappropriate attachments to their caregivers. It's called transference. These feelings aren't real." "Not real." Ethan's voice was quiet but strong. "Let me tell you what's not real. The brother who waited for me to die so he could steal my company. That's not real family. The fiancé who posed for magazines instead of holding my hand. That's not real. Love." He reached for Maria's hand. "But this woman, she sat with me every night, reading to me, talking to me, treating me like a person and not a bank account. She risked her job to expose the plot against me. Her daughter shared her homework, problems with me, and made me feel human again. That's real. That's more real than anything I had before." Victoria stood up, her face angry. "Oh, please, she's just a cleaning lady. She probably planned this whole thing, waiting for her chance." "Planned what?" Maria's voice rang out clear and strong. "Planned to read to a lonely man. Planned to tell him the truth when everyone else was lying. Planned to fall in love when I was trying so hard not to." The room went quiet at her words. Even Victoria seemed startled. "Yes, I fell in love," Maria continued, her voice shaking but determined. "I didn't mean to, I didn't want to, but Ethan, he sees me, not just the cleaning lady, but me. And he loves Lisa like she's his own. How could I not love a man like that?" Dr. Richards adjusted his glasses. "This is exactly what I mean. These intense emotions are exactly what saved my life," Ethan interrupted. "While you were all plotting and planning, Maria's kindness and honesty kept me connected to the world. She's the reason I fought to wake up, to get stronger, to take back what's mine." He looked around the table at the board members. "You all knew my father. He built this company from nothing because he believed in hard work, honesty, and treating people right. Look me in the eye and tell me Maria doesn't represent those values better than Alexander or Victoria ever did." The board members shifted uncomfortably. Many of them had known Ethan since he was a boy. They'd seen him grow from an idealistic young man into a hardened businessman. Now they saw something else in his eyes, something real and alive. "I move to dismiss these ridiculous accusations," said Margaret Wells, the oldest board member. "I've known Ethan Thompson since he was in short pants. I've never seen him more clear-headed or more sure of himself." "I second that motion," said another board member. Alexander's face turned red. "This is absurd. He's throwing away everything. For a cleaning lady." "No," Ethan said firmly. "I'm remembering what really matters. Dad didn't build this company to make us rich. He built it to make a difference. And that's what I'm going to do, with a woman who reminds me every day what true value looks like." The vote was quick and decisive. The board stood behind Ethan, leaving Alexander and Victoria stunned and angry. As they left the conference room, Lisa came running up. She'd been waiting outside with Ethan's nurse. "Did you win? Are the mean people going away?" Ethan laughed and pulled her into a hug. "Yes, sweetheart, the mean people are going away, and now we can start building something better." Later that evening, back in his hospital room, Ethan held Maria close. "I'm sorry you had to go through all that," she smiled against his shoulder. "It was worth it. But Ethan, are you really sure? Your life would be so much simpler without—" "First, I told you before, I don't want simple, I want real." He kissed her softly. "Besides, I've already started house hunting. Wait until you see the place I found. It has a huge backyard for Lisa's dog." "We haven't agreed to a dog yet," Maria laughed, but her eyes were shining with happy tears. "We will," he said confidently. "We're going to build a real life, with real love and real family. And nothing, not Alexander, not Victoria, not all the gossip in the world, can stop us." Outside the window, the city lights twinkled like stars. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles. But tonight, in that quiet room, love had won its first victory. And that was just the beginning. The day Ethan was released from the hospital was sunny and bright. He stood at the entrance, leaning slightly on his cane but determined to walk out on his own. Maria and Lisa waited nearby, watching proudly as he took each careful step. "Are you sure you don't want the wheelchair?" Maria asked, worried. "I'm sure," Ethan said firmly. "I want to walk into my new life." The house he had bought was nothing like his old penthouse. It was a beautiful two-story home in a quiet neighborhood, with a big yard and trees that were perfect for climbing. Lisa ran ahead as they pulled into the driveway. "Can I see my room? You said I could have a room here for when we visit." Maria gave Ethan a look. "You didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did." He squeezed her hand. "I want this to be a home for all of us, even if you're not ready to move in yet." Inside, the house was warm and welcoming. Ethan had hired decorators, but he'd insisted on keeping things simple and comfortable. No marble statues or crystal chandeliers, just soft couches, warm colors, and plenty of space for a family to grow. "This is amazing," Maria whispered, looking around the living room. "Mom! Mom! Come see my room," Lisa called from upstairs. "It has a desk for homework and bookshelves and everything." They followed Lisa's voice to a bright bedroom painted in cheerful yellow. There was indeed a perfect study area, and the bookshelves were already filled with science books and stories. "Do you like it?" Ethan asked nervously. Lisa threw her arms around him. "I love it. Can we stay here tonight, please, Mom?" Maria hesitated. "Honey, Mr. Thompson just got out of the hospital. He needs rest." "Please?" Ethan joined in. "I don't want to be alone my first night here. We could order pizza, watch movies." How could she resist both of them looking at her with those pleading eyes? "All right," she agreed, "but only if you promise to rest." They spent the evening on the comfortable couch, eating pizza and watching Lisa's favorite movies. It felt so natural, so right, that Maria had to keep reminding herself this wasn't really their home. Not yet. As Lisa dozed off between them, Ethan turned to Maria. "Move in with me," he said softly. "Ethan, not as my girlfriend or anything else, just as my friend if that's what you want. You and Lisa could have your own space here. No pressure, no expectations." She looked around the beautiful room. "People would talk. People are already talking. At least this way Lisa wouldn't have to deal with reporters camping outside your apartment." He had a point. Just that morning, she'd had to escort Lisa through a crowd of photographers to get to school. "I'll think about it," she promised. The next morning, reality crashed back in. The front page of the society section showed pictures of them arriving at the house with the headline, "Billionaire's new love nest, gold-digging cleaning lady moves in." "Don't look at that," Ethan said, trying to grab the paper, but Maria held onto it. "We have to face reality," she said sadly. "This isn't going to stop. Maybe I should—" "Don't even think about leaving," he interrupted. "We'll face this together." Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Margaret Wells, the senior board member who had defended them at the meeting. "I hope I'm not interrupting," she said, looking around approvingly at the house. "Much nicer than that cold penthouse, Ethan." "Would you like some coffee?" Maria offered, starting to retreat to the kitchen. "Stay," Margaret said firmly. "This concerns you too." She sat down, smoothing her expensive skirt. "I've known the Thompson family for 40 years. I watched Ethan grow up, saw him turn from a sweet boy into someone his father wouldn't have recognized." She looked directly at Maria. "Until now. Whatever you've done, my dear, you've brought back the Ethan I used to know, the one who cared about people more than profits." "I haven't done anything," Maria protested. You loved him," Margaret interrupted, simply and honestly. "Do you know how rare that is in our world?" She turned back to Ethan. "That's why I'm here. Alexander isn't giving up. He's been meeting with shareholders, trying to turn them against you. He's painting you as mentally unstable, claiming your relationship with Maria proves you're unfit to run the company." "Let him try," Ethan said grimly. "Oh, I'm not worried about that," Margaret smiled. "I've known these shareholders for decades. They trust my judgment, and I'm going to tell them exactly what I see here. A man who finally remembered what real value looks like." She stood up, straightening her jacket. "But you two need to stop hiding. The more you try to avoid the press, the more they'll hound you. Show them what I see. A real family built on real love. That's something even our jaded society respects deep down." After she left, Maria sat quietly, thinking. She's right, isn't she? We can't keep acting like we're doing something wrong. "We're not," Ethan said firmly. "I love you. I love Lisa. I'm proud of that." Just then, Lisa came running down the stairs. "Mum, can we go to the park? The one with the dog park?" Ethan grinned. "Still campaigning for that dog, huh? Maybe we could just—" "Look," Lisa said innocently. "You know, just to see what kind we might want. Someday," Maria laughed. "You two are impossible." But she was already reaching for her coat. They spent the morning at the park, ignoring the stares and whispers. Lisa made friends with every dog there, while Ethan and Maria sat on a bench, holding hands and talking about the future. "I want to start a foundation," Ethan said suddenly, "to help single parents, give them education opportunities, job training. What do you think?" Maria's eyes filled with tears. "I think you're amazing. No, you're amazing. You raised Lisa alone, worked hard, stayed kind despite everything. I want to help other people do the same." A photographer jumped out from behind a tree, snapping pictures, but this time they didn't run or hide. Instead, Ethan pulled Maria close and kissed her right there in front of everyone. "Let them see," he whispered against her lips. "Let them see what real love looks like." Later that night, after Lisa had gone to sleep in her new yellow room, Maria and Ethan sat in the backyard looking at the stars. "I'll move in," she said quietly. He turned to her, hope shining in his eyes. "Really? Really?" Not because I have to, but because this feels like home. You and Lisa, this house, even the crazy reporters, it feels right. Ethan pulled her close, his heart full of joy. Welcome home, my love. Above them, the stars twinkled like diamonds. But their real treasure was right here, a family built not on money or status, but on love, trust, and the courage to be real in a world of pretense. Moving day was chaos. Maria hadn't realized how many things she and Lisa had collected over the years in their small apartment. Each box seemed to hold 1,000 memories. Where do you want these photo albums? Ethan asked, holding up a worn blue book. Just put them, Maria started, but she was interrupted by the doorbell. When she opened the door, her heart stopped. Standing there, looking exactly as he had 12 years ago, was David, Lisa's father. Hello, Maria, he said smoothly. Long time no see. She gripped the doorframe for support. What are you doing here? Can't a father visit his daughter? He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes, especially when she's living in such a nice new house. Of course. He had seen the news stories. Maria felt sick. Mom? Lisa came down the stairs. Who's that? Before Maria could answer, David stepped forward. Lisa, is that you? You've grown so much. Lisa backed away, confused and scared. Mom? It's okay, sweetheart, Maria said quickly. This is your father. The room went silent. Ethan appeared in the doorway, leaning on his cane, his face concerned. What's going on? David's eyes narrowed. Ah, the famous Mr. Thompson. I've been reading about you and Maria in the papers. Quite a story. David, Maria said firmly, you need to leave now. Leave? I just got here. And I have rights, you know. She's my daughter too. Rights? Maria's voice shook with anger. You gave up those rights when you walked out on us. Lisa was 2 years old. She had pneumonia. We needed money for medicine and you just left. Lisa's eyes filled with tears. She ran upstairs, slamming her door. Lisa! Maria started to follow, but David caught her arm. Let her go. We need to talk about arrangements. I'm her father, and now that you're financially stable, his eyes flicked meaningfully toward Ethan. Take your hand off her. Ethan's voice was quiet but dangerous. Now. David let go, holding up his hands with a fake smile. Hey, I'm just trying to be reasonable here, but if you want to do this the hard way... He pulled out some papers. I've already talked to a lawyer. I have rights. Jim, Ethan said into his phone, I need you at the house now and bring Sarah from family court. After he hung up, he turned to David. You want to talk rights? Let's talk about 12 years of unpaid child support. Let's talk about abandonment. Let's talk about suddenly showing up when you smell money. This isn't your business, David snapped. Maria and Lisa are my family. That makes it my business. Maria touched Ethan's arm. I need to check on Lisa. She found her daughter curled up on her bed, clutching the teddy bear Ethan had given her. Why did he come back? Lisa whispered. Why now? Maria sat down, pulling her daughter close. Because he's not a good person, sweetheart. He only thinks about himself. Is he going to make me go with him? No, Maria said firmly. Never. You're my daughter and no one is going to take you away. Downstairs, they could hear voices. Ethan's lawyers had arrived. Jim and Sarah were two of the best family court attorneys in the city. I don't want to see him, Lisa said. He's not my real father. A real father is someone who loves you and takes care of you and helps you with homework. She looked up at her mother. Like Ethan. Maria's heart squeezed. Oh, baby. There was a knock at the door. It was Ethan, looking worried. Can I come in? Lisa ran to him, hugging him tight. Don't let him take me away. Never, Ethan promised, holding her close. You're stuck with me, kiddo, both of you are. They went downstairs together, a united front. David was sitting with the lawyers, looking less confident. Here's how this is going to work, Jim was saying. You're going to sign these papers, giving up any claim to parental rights. In exchange, we won't pursue the 12 years of back child support you owe. And if I don't, David challenged. Then we go to court, Sarah said calmly, where I present evidence of abandonment, failure to support, and your numerous attempts to avoid paying child support by moving between states. Do you really want that? David's face turned ugly. This isn't over. You can't buy my daughter. No. One's buying anything, Lisa spoke up suddenly. Everyone turned to look at her. You're not my father. A father is someone who's there when you're scared or sick or need help with science projects. A father is someone who loves you no matter what. She walked over to Ethan, taking his hand. I already have that. David stood up, his face red. You've turned her against me. You did that yourself, Maria said quietly, when you walked out and never looked back. Now please sign the papers and leave us alone. Maybe it was the lawyers, or maybe it was the quiet strength in Maria's voice, but David finally signed. As security showed him out, he turned back one last time. You think you've won, that you can play happy family with your rich boyfriend. This isn't over. But it was over. As soon as he was gone, Lisa burst into tears. Not sad tears, but tears of relief. He's really gone? He can't come back? Never, Ethan promised. You're safe. You're home. Later that night, after Lisa had finally fallen asleep, Maria sat in the garden, shaking. I should have known he'd show up, she said. As soon as he saw the news stories, Ethan sat beside her, pulling her close. Hey, look at me. You handled it perfectly. You stayed strong for Lisa. You showed her what real love looks like. I was so scared, she whispered, when he grabbed my arm. For a moment, I was that young girl again, alone and terrified. But you're not alone anymore, Ethan kissed her softly. You have me, and I promise you no one will ever hurt you or Lisa again. Inside, Lisa's nightlight glowed softly in her yellow room. The moving boxes sat half unpacked, waiting for tomorrow. But that was okay. They had all the time in the world now. I love you, Maria said softly. Both of us do. I love you too. Ethan smiled. Both of you. More than anything in the world. Above them, the stars shone bright and clear. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight they were safe, they were together, and they were home. Sometimes, Maria thought, the worst storms bring the most beautiful rainbows, and this rainbow was more precious than all the gold in the world. The morning newspaper sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Maria didn't want to look at it, but she couldn't help herself. The headline made her stomach turn. Love triangle, cleaning lady's ex-husband fights for custody. Don't read that trash, Ethan said, coming into the kitchen with his coffee. His leg was getting stronger every day, and he barely needed the cane anymore. They're making it sound like David actually cares about Lisa, Maria said, her voice tight with anger. They don't know what we went through, how many nights I worked double shifts just to buy medicine when she was sick. Ethan pulled her close. The people who matter know the truth. Just then, Lisa came bouncing down the stairs. Mum, can Angela come over after school? We have a science project to work on. Of course, sweetheart. Maria was grateful that Lisa had made such good friends at her new school, despite all the gossip about her family. The doorbell rang, making them all jump. Ever since David's appearance, every unexpected visitor made them nervous. It was Jim, Ethan's lawyer, looking serious. We have a problem. David's teamed up with Alexander and Victoria. What? Ethan's face darkened. They're filing a joint lawsuit. Alexander's claiming you're mentally unfit to run the company, using your relationship with Maria as evidence. Victoria's claiming emotional distress and breach of promise. And David, he's claiming Maria's an unfit mother who used her position as a cleaning lady to seduce a vulnerable patient. Maria sank into a chair, feeling sick. How can they do this? They can't, Ethan said firmly. We have proof of Alexander's scheming, Victoria's betrayal, and David's abandonment. It's not about winning, Jim explained. It's about creating scandal. They want to pressure the board, make shareholders nervous. Alexander thinks if he can create enough chaos, the board will beg him to take control just to make it stop. Lisa stood in the doorway, her face pale. This is all my fault. If I wasn't here, no, Maria and Ethan said together. None of this is your fault, Ethan said, hugging her tight. The people who are doing this, they're the ones at fault. They're angry because they can't control us anymore. The phone rang. It was Margaret Wells. Turn on the TV, she said grimly. Channel 6. They did, and there was Victoria, dabbing at her eyes with a silk handkerchief, while a sympathetic reporter nodded. I was there through his whole coma, she was saying. praying every day for him to wake up. And then this woman took advantage of his confused state. The camera cut to David looking soulful. I just want to be part of my daughter's life, but they won't let me see her. They're keeping her isolated, turning her against me. That's not true, Lisa shouted at the TV. He never cared about me before. Alexander appeared next, looking concerned. As his brother, I have to speak up. Ethan's behavior since the coma, the bizarre relationship with the cleaning lady, the reckless business decisions. It's not like him. He needs help, not enablers. Ethan turned off the TV, his hands shaking with anger. Enough, Jim, set up a press conference. It's time we told our side of the story. Are you sure? Maria asked. Maybe if we just keep quiet. No more hiding, Ethan said firmly. No more letting them control the narrative. It's time for the truth. Later that afternoon, the press conference was set up in front of Thompson Industries. Reporters and cameras filled the plaza, buzzing with excitement. Ethan stood at the podium, Maria and Lisa beside him. He didn't use his cane, standing straight and strong. I've called this press conference to address the recent allegations against my family, he began. Yes, I said family. Maria and Lisa are my family now, and I'm proud of that. He looked directly into the cameras. While I was in a coma, my brother tried to steal my company. My fiancée posed for photos instead of holding my hand. But Maria, she sat with me every night, reading to me, talking to me, treating me like a person and not a bank account. He turned to Lisa. And this amazing young lady shared her homework with me, made me laugh, showed me what real family love looks like. They didn't care about my money or my position. They cared about me. Maria stepped forward, her voice shaking, but clear. When David, my ex-husband, left us, Lisa was desperately ill. She had pneumonia and we couldn't afford the medicine. I worked 3 jobs to save her. He never called, never sent money, never asked if his daughter lived or died. Lisa spoke next, her young voice strong and clear. My real father is standing right here. She took Ethan's hand. He helps me with homework, reads me stories, and loves my mom. That's what a father does. Ethan faced the cameras again. To those trying to destroy us with lawsuits and lies, I say this. You've already lost. Not the legal battle, though we'll win that too, but something more important. You've lost the ability to hurt us, because we have something you can't touch or steal or destroy, real love. The reporters erupted with questions, but Ethan held up his hand. One more thing. Today, I'm announcing the creation of the Thompson Family Foundation. We'll provide education and support for single parents, helping them give their children the futures they deserve. Because every family deserves a chance at happiness, not just the wealthy ones. As they left the podium, reporters shouting questions behind them, Maria squeezed Ethan's hand. Are you okay? He smiled. Better than okay. For the first time in my life, I'm standing up for something that really matters. That evening, as they sat in their garden, Lisa came running out with her tablet. Look, people are posting nice things about us online. They're calling us a real-life fairy tale. Maria laughed. Well, you did get your prince. No, Ethan said softly. I got my queens. Both of you. The phone rang. It was Margaret Wells again. The shareholders are calling, she said. They love the foundation idea, and after seeing that, press conference. Let's just say Alexander's support is crumbling fast. After she hung up, Ethan pulled Maria close. See? The truth is stronger than their lies. I was so scared, she admitted, when they all teamed up against us. But we're stronger together, he said, all 3 of us. Lisa curled up between them, yawning. Can we get that dog now? I think we deserve it after today. Maria and Ethan looked at each other and laughed. Even in the middle of all this drama, Lisa stayed focused on what was really important. Tomorrow, Ethan promised, we'll go to the shelter first thing. As the stars came out, they sat together in their garden, a real family made stronger by the storms they'd weathered together. The lawsuits and scandals would play out, but they weren't afraid anymore. They had each other, and that was worth more than all the money and power in the world. 6 months had passed since the press conference. The morning sun streamed through the kitchen windows as Maria made breakfast. Max, The golden retriever they had adopted from the shelter lay at her feet, hoping. 4 dropped bacon. "Mom, have you seen my science project?" Lisa called from upstairs. "The one about heart surgery? It's on the dining room table, honey," Maria called back. She smiled, remembering how excited Lisa had been when she won first place in the science fair. Her dream of becoming a doctor seemed closer every day. Ethan came in from his morning walk, no cane in sight. The physical therapy had worked wonders, and he was stronger than ever. He kissed Maria good morning, stealing a piece of bacon. "Ready for the big day?" he asked. She nodded, butterflies in her stomach. Today was the final court hearing. All the lawsuits, Alexander's, Victoria's, and David's, would be settled once and for all. "The truth is on our side," Ethan reminded her, seeing her nervousness. "We have nothing to fear." The courthouse was packed. Reporters lined the steps. But they didn't run or hide anymore. They walked in together, heads held high, a family united. Alexander sat with his lawyers, looking tired and old. The past months had not been kind to him. After the press conference, shareholders had demanded an investigation. The evidence of his plotting with Michael Davis had come to light, and his reputation was in tatters. Victoria sat on the other side, wearing black like a widow. Her society friends had mostly abandoned her after text messages emerged, showing her planning to take control of Ethan's money while he was in the coma. David wasn't there. He had dropped his custody suit 2 months ago, after his other abandoned families came forward. Turned out Lisa wasn't the only child he had walked away from. The judge took her seat, looking over her glasses at the assembled crowd. "This has been one of the most unusual cases I've seen in my 30 years on the bench," she began. "We have corporate law, family law, and what appears to be a soap opera script all rolled into one." A small laugh rippled through the courtroom. "However," the judge continued, "the facts are clear. Mr. Alexander Thompson, your attempts to seize control of Thompson Industries while your brother was incapacitated were not only unethical, but illegal. Your countersuit claiming mental incompetence is dismissed, and you are hereby ordered to repay all funds diverted during your brother's illness." Alexander slumped in his chair. "Miss Victoria Pierce, your claim of emotional distress is likewise dismissed. The evidence shows you were actively working against Mr. Thompson's interests while he was unable to defend himself. You are ordered to return all gifts and property acquired during your engagement." Victoria dabbed at her eyes, but no tears came. "As for the custody suit filed and then withdrawn by David Martinez, let the record show that his parental rights have been permanently terminated due to abandonment." The judge looked at Ethan, Maria, and Lisa. "Now to the matter that really brought us all here. Love, real love, the kind that doesn't care about bank accounts or social status, the kind that sits by a hospital bed reading stories, that helps with homework, that builds a family not from obligation, but from choice." She smiled, a rare sight in her courtroom. "It is the finding of this court that all claims against Ethan Thompson, Maria Martinez, and Lisa Martinez are dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore, Mr. Thompson's petition is granted." Maria looked at Ethan, confused. "Petition? What petition?" Ethan stood up, taking her hand. "The petition I filed last month, the one asking permission to adopt Lisa." Lisa's eyes went wide. "Really? You want to be my real dad legally?" "I already am your real dad in my heart," Ethan said softly. "This just makes it official. If you want it, that is." Lisa threw herself into his arms, crying happy tears. "Yes, yes, yes, yes!" Maria felt tears running down her own cheeks. "You did this without telling me?" "I had one more surprise planned," Ethan said. And right there in front of the judge, the reporters, and even his defeated enemies, he got down on one knee. "Maria Martinez, you saved my life in more ways than I can count. You showed me what real love looks like. You and Lisa made me part of a real family. Will you marry me?" The courtroom held its breath. "Yes," Maria whispered, then louder. "Yes," the judge smiled. "Well, I don't usually do this, but would you like to get married right now? So I'm licensed to perform ceremonies, and we certainly have enough witnesses." Maria looked at Lisa, who was nodding enthusiastically. "Yes," she said again. "Right now is perfect." The ceremony was simple, but beautiful. Margaret Wells rushed out to buy flowers from a street vendor. Lisa stood between them holding their hands. Even the reporters were crying. "By the power vested in me by the state," the judge said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. And," she smiled at Lisa, "I hereby declare the adoption final. You are now legally, as you have been in love, a family." Outside the courthouse, the spring sun was shining. Alexander and Victoria slipped away, defeated at last. But no one noticed them leaving. All eyes were on the happy family standing in the sunshine. "What happens now?" Lisa asked, holding both their hands. "Now?" Ethan grinned. "Now we go home. Max is probably wondering where his lunch is." "And then?" Maria asked, looking up at her husband. "Then we live our happily ever after. The real kind, with homework and dog walks and family dinners. The kind that means something because we chose it, fought for it, and won it together." As they drove home, Maria thought about the journey that had brought them here. From hospital rooms to courtrooms, from scandal to triumph, from cleaning lady and patient to husband and wife. It hadn't been easy, but the best things in life never were. That evening, they sat in their garden. Max played with Lisa on the lawn, while Ethan and Maria watched from the porch swing. "I love you," Maria said softly. "Both of you, all of you, including our furry family member." "I love you too," Ethan replied. "You know, when I was in that coma, I could hear you reading to me. You made me want to wake up, to be better, to be real. You saved me." "We saved each other," she corrected, "and now we have forever to be thankful for it." Lisa came running up, Max at her heels. "Can we have pizza to celebrate?" They laughed. Some things never changed, and that was perfect too. As the stars came out, the Thompson family, all four of them, sat together in their garden. The newspapers would have their headlines tomorrow. The society pages would buzz with the surprise wedding, but none of that mattered. What mattered was the love that had brought them together, the truth that had kept them strong, and the family they had built from the ashes of their old lives. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. And as Maria looked at her husband and daughter laughing together, Max wagging his tail beside them, she knew that sometimes the best stories aren't the ones we plan, but the ones that find us when we least expect them. Sometimes the greatest love grows not in ballrooms or boardrooms, but in quiet hospital rooms where a gentle heart meets a wounded soul. Sometimes happily ever after is just the beginning,